In today's global update, the developers will introduce a new map generation, new rock formations, anvil-shaped stones, surface caves, canyons, oases, and more. Naturally, all these exciting new locations can be built on. I spent an entire month studying these new elements, and I have a lot to show you. While building a base on an anvil-shaped rock might bring you purely aesthetic pleasure, constructing a base inside the new rock formations, when done correctly, can provide protection for your resources from over 100 rockets. I'm going to show you the best way to build within these new cave-like stones that will be available starting today. Keep in mind that even though all the new rocks may look the same, they can slightly vary on the inside. I've taken that into account, so my build is applicable to almost all the rock formations if you follow the tutorial closely. And now let me show you how my cave base looks from the inside. The new rock formation provides maximum protection for your resources, but it does come with a clear drawback. There can only be one exit. That's why I designed this exit in such a way that makes door camping nearly impossible. Through these shop fronts, you can gather all the information you need about what's happening outside your base. I've only installed 2 beds here, but if you're playing with more people, there's enough space for everyone. On the left, there's a passage deeper into the base, and on the right is the way up to the second floor. Here I have a turret and a jump up combined with a shooting position. Since the main loot is stored deep inside the cave, I decided to add an alternative loot room on the second floor for quick drop-offs. The shooting floor turned out small but efficient. From here, you can shoot at long-range targets if necessary, or even at anyone on your roof or the top of the rock. And naturally, if you use this shooting position and manage to take someone out, there are doors on either side that allow you to exit whenever needed. Just don't forget to place some shotgun traps here. That pretty much covers the external part of the base. Now let me show you the passage to the main area. As you'll notice, I've placed a lot of doors here. I don't always use garage doors since they are often left open, so make sure to mix in regular double doors or HQM doors from time to time. I've tested many different layouts for this path to the main area with and without bunkers, but what I'm showing you now is the most secure design. From the outside, there are 5 walls and 19 doors if they raid through the doors. If all 19 doors are garage doors, that's already 57 rockets, and you could even have HQM doors in some spots. I'll explain the purpose of these 4 large boxes a bit later. At the end of this path, there's an auto turret and a raised foundation. This foundation allows for a stability bunker. To open it, you need to spawn on a sleeping bag inside the base and break this twig half wall. Once that's done, your bunker will open. I'll show you how to close it later when I explain what those 4 large boxes are for. Right now, we're in another passage of the base. There are a lot of doors here too, as well as a bunch of electric furnaces. As you may have noticed, the main part of this base consists of square foundations, so you definitely won't run out of storage space for your resources. You can even fit an oil refinery inside this rock formation. And of course, what kind of cave would it be without an atmospheric attic? Here, I've placed a research table, a repair bench, and another hidden room. In this room, I've stored 6 mixing tables and 2 large batteries. Don't worry, the mixing tables fit perfectly into the textures, so you won't run into any issues during survival. Now let's go further into the base. The main structure is made up of squares, which means you'll have plenty of space for storage boxes. This window frame here will help you early in your wipe while your cave is still under construction, and later on when they start raiding you through the doors. But honestly, I wouldn't want to raid a base like this. This cave offers a lot of space. You can easily survive here either as a duo or with a clan of up to 8 players. There's room for everyone, and I haven't even started placing boxes on the floor yet. Behind the last garage door, I have another 6 furnaces, and behind the HQM door, there are 3 more large boxes and the TC itself. The upkeep is manageable, especially considering the protection of over 100 rockets. Also, you probably didn't notice, but I've included a small hidden loot room for 1 box behind an inconspicuous window frame. You just remove the glass and embrasure, and you get access to the large box. I'll show how to build this in the tutorial as well. Now, about the bunker and those 4 large boxes outside. The bunker is closed quite easily. Just place a half wall and a ceiling. As for the 4 boxes, they are there, so you can transfer resources from the main area if you're getting raided from the rear. If the raid is coming from the front, you'll probably fend them off and keep replacing doors while defending. But if they raid from the back, it's safer to move your resources just in case. In this scenario, raiders would have to drill through the entire cave to reach your loot if you're online. You're probably curious about the rear protection of the base. You can place at least 10 walls back there, and that's not even the limit. Some of them can be upgraded to HQM. The rear of the base is very well protected, so you'll definitely appreciate that sense of security. And here's another cool trick with those walls. You can actually remove one layer, say this one, Sure, it'll reduce the raid cost by 7 rockets from the rear, but it's no big deal. In return, you can separate the entire rear of the base into a multi-TC, which means even if they raid your cave, they won't be able to fully grief it. In the tutorial, I'll also show you how to further expand the rear defenses, making this rock formation an absolute fortress. And I just can't forget to remind you about my Patreon. Today, I've uploaded a private build for the new overpowered rock base, and get this, I've managed to fit 7 HQM bunkers into this little gem. It'll take at least 110 rockets to reach any loot. For only $7.50, you'll get access to this private base as well as all the other content I publish there, which already includes at least 17 private bases for any playstyle. The link to my Patreon will be in the description. Subscribe, you won't regret it. Before you begin building this base, the first thing you need to do is find the right location. You're looking for the largest new rock formation. They all look the same from the outside and are fairly common. Look, I even found 3 in the same spot. Once you've located the rock, the first step is to claim the spot. Even something as simple as this needs to be done correctly. I'll give you all the necessary markers. Notice the rock texture. There are 3 cracks. We need the central one. The square foundation must be aligned with the walls so that it sits parallel to it. However, the foundation itself shouldn't touch the rock texture. Afterward, place the foundations extending to the opposite side. And here is where you'll start building the base, beginning with a 2x1 structure. I'll be upgrading to the final version right away, but you can initially build it out of stone if you prefer. If you run into any issues during your wipe, like if the foundation doesn't place or the terrain is too uneven, don't worry. This cave design allows for some flexibility in following the guide. Unlike my other base designs, it's not as critical if something doesn't go exactly as planned. Now your starter base is almost ready. And while I continue building this base, I want to take a moment to thank everyone who watches, likes and comments on my videos. You are my motivation and the reason I keep doing what I love. If you have any ideas or suggestions for future base designs, feel free to drop them in the comments. I read every single one and truly value your feedback. I also want to extend a special thanks to all my Patreon subscribers. Thanks to your support, I can upgrade my PC components and bring you the highest quality visuals in my videos. I release content regularly, with at least 2 videos on YouTube and 2 exclusive videos on Patreon every month. And you know, I've never missed a promise when it comes to video releases, so by subscribing, you're ensuring a steady stream of high-quality Rust content. Once again, thank you all so much. Now let's get back to the build. The back wall of this loot room will eventually need to be upgraded to HQM, so don't forget about that. If you're having trouble placing walls in tight spots like I am right now, try moving left or right, jumping a bit. Eventually it should snap into place. In this new loot room, you'll be able to fit 4 large boxes. If you're still struggling with storage space, you can also place some small boxes between them. And don't forget to put a door on this loot room, otherwise there will only be 1 door between your loot and the outside, which isn't ideal. All the workbenches you need can be placed here as well. Under the level 2 workbench, for example, you can fit 2 small boxes. Once you've set everything up, step out and start building in this next spot. Here, you'll create another loot room on a square foundation with ramps. Of course, I'll speed up this process to save you time. You may have noticed that I'm not spending HQM on upgrading the foundations. That's because after extensive testing, I found that upgrading foundations with HQM in cave bases isn't particularly worthwhile. We step out of the door again and begin building another loot room, which will be identical to the previous one, so I'll speed up the building process even more. At first, it may seem like I'm adding too many boxes, but considering this will be your main base for the entire wipe, I actually think these boxes might not be enough, so eventually you'll likely end up placing even more boxes on the floor. Don't forget that you should have a window frame here, which will protect you from door campers. Make sure to at least place a wooden shutter in the window so no one can climb in, and if you want it to be easier to shoot out from here, you can go ahead and place a ramp. Once that's done, this part of the base is complete, and we can move on. To the left will be where your oil refinery will eventually go. While we don't have it yet, it's important to prepare the spot in advance. You can do this by placing foundations on both sides of where the refinery will be, then removing the foundation directly underneath where it'll go. By the way, this is also where the stairs to the attic will be, so I recommend you start working on that right away. At this point, you're likely to have walls about 2 stories high, but again, this depends on the terrain where you're building this base. These new rock formations have similar textures inside, but the terrain underneath them can vary quite a bit. You can design the attic to your liking, but I suggest following the tutorial. The attic will eventually base your large battery, which is a crucial part of the base. You can place the walls as you prefer. Just make sure you can reach and upgrade them after placing them, as some walls might be out of reach. Ideally, you'll fit at least 2 large batteries in the attic. Now that the attic is done, let's focus on creating a better exit for the base. Take note here that I'm placing foundations directly into the rock texture and upgrading them to wood. These wooden foundations don't provide much protection, but their primary purpose is to help us place the walls correctly. Later on, these wooden foundations will also assist with placing furnaces that fit into the textures and so on. When the time comes, you'll be able to place your oil refinery without any issues. Now, I want to draw your attention to something. As I've built the attic, you can see some small gaps forming. Whether you choose to close them up is entirely up to you. If resources are scarce, you can leave them as they are, as they don't affect the raid security of your base at all. These gaps don't allow access to your base, so closing them is purely cosmetic. I'm closing them here just to show you how it can be done. At this point, your base should look like this from the outside. Once you gather more resources, it's time to expand. Notice that I'm not placing doors and doorways everywhere just yet because I don't want to overwhelm you with too many doors at once. The key rule here is simple. If a door can go somewhere, make sure to place one. To make this hidden stash, first place a box and then cover it with a window frame. Don't forget to rotate the window frame to prevent it from being easily eco-rated. And with that, your secret loot room is ready. Add frames, ceilings, and doors as needed. Once you're done with this section, open the double doors and continue building. In the future, this long hallway will be lined with doors, and this is also where I had my electric furnaces placed in a row. The key thing here is not to forget to prepare the setup for the future bunker at the end, but don't worry, I'll guide you through it step by step so you won't get confused. As usual, upgrade the walls and ceilings to sheet metal, while the frames can be left as stone. First, you need to clean up the area. Place walls into the rock textures where possible. Once that's done, it's time to set up the bunker preparation. Notice, I've placed the half wall on top. Now, place a low foundation here, and on the right side, be sure to place a high foundation and upgrade it to HQM. On the left side, place another low foundation. This is where 3 furnaces will be positioned behind the ledge. Pay attention to the large gaps that may appear between your base and the rock above. These gaps need to be sealed. For example, here I placed a half wall, but there's still a gap. Simply remove the half wall and replace it with a regular wall to close the gap. The bunker will function regardless. In areas that don't require heavy defense, you can simply place walls and upgrade them to stone. Now your bunker is essentially ready, you just need to add 2 doors. The setup ends up being pretty convenient. To make things more comfortable, you can even place another low foundation to make it easier to jump into the base. At this stage, if needed, you can close off your HQM bunker at any time. Let's go ahead and check if the bunker works. As you can see, it's functioning perfectly, so it should work well for you too. Since I mentioned earlier that you can fit 3 furnaces here, let me place them now. There we go, just like that. You may notice gaps appearing between the base and the rock, and these must be sealed with ledges, half walls, or full walls. The important thing is to ensure there are no gaps. The method doesn't matter as much. The front part of the base is now heavily fortified. But here's the issue. On the back side of the base, there's only one wall between the outside and your TC. See this protruding foundation? The oil refinery is located just behind it. So, once your exit with the bunker is ready, I recommend adding a single layer of triangular foundations and immediately closing it off with full height walls at least 2 stories tall to ensure there are no gaps. Just think about it. This single layer of triangular foundations already adds 3 walls of protection to the back side of the base. But that's not the final layer. As you continue adding more walls, no one will want to raid from the back, especially after adding another 10 walls. The new rocks are truly OP and I'm a big fan of them. Now, let's move on to the front part of the base. The wall and bunker foundation here must be upgraded to HQM. Next, we shift slightly to the right, where we'll add another layer of triangular foundations. This effectively blocks off any attempt to bypass the bunker we set up earlier. So, raiders will have 2 options. Either blow through all the garage doors here and then spend another 15 rockets on the bunker, or go straight in, but that'll require at least 3 sheet metal walls to be breached. And don't forget about the gaps that might appear. This is crucial. You won't always need half walls or full walls. Sometimes you can use ledges, which are cheaper and cost the same to upgrade as ceilings. Now we return to working on the front of the base. Here we'll add another layer of triangular foundations. At the end, make sure you can exit from this area. If so, place a doorway and a door. Upgrade the door frames to stone and everything else to sheet metal. Once the exit is complete, place standard walls leading up to the bunker, and yes, if any gaps appear, be sure to close those as well. In my case, the gaps are small, so I'm using ledges to cover them. As a result, you'll create a long corridor leading all the way to the bunker. This entire passage should be lined with stone door frames, but don't forget there might be gaps above them which also need to be sealed. I suggest using ledges for that. You could even place shotgun traps here if space allows, which would add even more security. Wherever possible, you should place doors, and later on, make sure to replace them all with garage doors. If you fill everything with regular doors, it might not be very convenient. Now, after exiting through the double doors, we're going to build another layer of walls. The key idea I want to emphasize here is that you need to plan your future base exit route in advance. For example, I can't move forward from this point, so I immediately place a wall here. The nearest turn is to the left, so I place a double door frame there. Everything else is built with regular walls, adding 2 more layers in this section. If the terrain texture is low, as it is for me right now, you can either add ceilings everywhere or skip them depending on the texture height. Don't forget to climb up and continue adding walls higher if necessary. Once that's done, let me explain something important. If you break through on the left side, there are 3 walls to get through, but on the right side, there are several doors and just 1 wall. These single walls must be upgraded to HQM. If there's only 1 wall, it's crucial to upgrade it. This applies to any kind of base design. Without moving too far from what we just built, we'll add another layer of sheet metal triangular foundations. As you can see, although this consumes a few more resources, it provides an insane amount of protection. Again, plan your route. Are we heading left? No, we're not going left, so we immediately wall that section off to avoid distractions. We're moving through this corridor to the right. Here I have a tricky spot where it's unclear if I can pass. Always place the doorway and test if you can move through it afterward. From here, I can already see the sky, which means it's time to build walls that are 2 stories high. And at the point where you can already see the sky, you should also install additional ceilings. In this area, I'll have 3 layers of ceilings, 1 in the middle, which I'm building now, another at the very bottom, and the 3rd at the top. Here, make sure to place stone double door frames everywhere and alternate between regular doors and garage doors to prevent getting easily deeped. Imagine if you only had garage doors and the bunker was left open. Some naked player could just run in, get to the TC, authorize, and grief you. The likelihood of that happening is low, but it's still a possibility. Now you should have something like this for your entrance. From the outside, it may look unfinished, like something's missing. See, I don't have a door on the left, which makes it appear incomplete. But if I place a double door at the exit, I won't even be able to leave the base. For places like this, you should only use garage doors. Now let's talk about the back side of your base. Start by placing triangular foundations everywhere. Once you've done that, you need to make a decision. Will you build a multi-TC or not? If not, simply wall everything off. But if you are planning to build a multi-TC, you'll need to remove this layer of triangular foundations to ensure they're not connected to the main TC. After you remove it, wall everything up. If you notice that the passage is covered by only a few walls, like in my case where I have just 4 walls, you should definitely upgrade these walls to HQM. I only spent 100 HQM, but I added the equivalent of 15 rockets to the raid cost from this side. Not bad. To leave space for adding more walls on this side in the future, use triangular foundations to extend your TC coverage. And honestly, it doesn't even matter if the multi-TC is not disconnected. Even if raiders spend 100 rockets on your cave and destroy your main TC, it's not that hard to craft 22 Yoka shots to break this extra TC and reset everything. Then you can reauthorize the main TC in your cave and reestablish the multi-TC. That's how I would personally approach this build. If I were in your position, I'd probably build another base from triangular foundations in place of that multi-TC. Also, I'd definitely add extra walls on the back side. Honestly, this seems like a super good idea. Now that we're done with the back, let's move back to the front of the base. Here, we need to add another layer of triangular foundations. After this layer, you can start placing stone triangular foundations. These stone foundations will serve as your entrance to the base and support your shooting floor. At this point, your base should look like this from the outside. Make sure you have an entrance to the base and a way to access the second floor. Where the staircase will be, don't forget to place a half wall and an embrasure window frame for your shooting floor peak. Don't forget to place turrets wherever possible, as they're extremely important. I can't guarantee 100% that your cave build will turn out exactly like mine, but as you're building it, try to stick to the same key principles I followed. I sealed all the gaps that appeared during construction. I created a long corridor leading to the base's bunker. I made a square main area for easy access, and I alternated garage doors with regular double doors. And of course, I built a shooting floor. I never recommend building a base without one, so having some sort of shooting floor is essential. Also, make sure you have a loot room for quick resource drops, so you don't have to constantly constantly run to the center of the cave, and be sure to optimize the raid costs of your base, both in terms of doors and walls, so that raiders have to use roughly the same number of rockets for both. To prevent being deeped, I recommend having at least 2 exits, both through an airlock. This will make it harder for enemies to camp you and stress you out. And just look at how amazing this new peak is turning out. It's my new Pixel Peak 2025. Alright, that was sarcasm by the way. Just install the glass in that spot and you're good. In the center, I highly recommend placing a shop front. These shop fronts will give you a fantastic view of everything happening outside your base. Ideally, place them with the inside facing outwards, so they don't get in your way. If you're worried about soft sides, don't be. Shop fronts don't have soft sides, so they can't be eco-rated. Now, let's move to the second floor and start building the shooting floor. Around the center, place 3 half walls. Next, we prepare for a future turret by adding 3 window frames. Then install 2 triangular roofs leading towards the window frames and 3 more triangular roofs on top for aesthetics. Don't forget to create exits for the shooting floor on both sides. Once that's done, cover everything with ceilings and place 2 railings. At this point, the shooting floor is complete except for some reinforcement. Before I go, I want to express my gratitude to my one and only OP subscriber, as well as everyone else supporting me on Patreon. Thank you so much. Because of your support, I can keep doing what I love. Be sure to subscribe, like, and check out my other videos. And now, I am off to design a new base.